This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's up, everybody? Let's do this. Game day for the Winnipeg Jets and lots to get to on today's edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thanks for being with us. Shout out to everyone joining us live on YouTube. And a big thanks to everyone making WST a part of their day on the drive home or later on the podcast. We have lots to get to today. Of course, we'll be talking about stunning, shocking. I don't even know if I have the right words to describe the Kyle Beach interview with Rick Westhead that I'm sure just about everyone has seen already from yesterday's edition of TSN Sports Center. We'll be talking about that, ramifications for the National Hockey League, the Blackhawks, and of course the latest on Kevin Cheveldayoff's situation as he awaits his meeting with Commissioner Gary Bettman coming up on Monday in New York City. Dustin Nielson's also going to pop by. Always love chatting with Dusty. We'll get his thoughts on what's going on in the National Hockey League as well. Certainly, he's been calling a lot of Bomber games. We'll ask him about just how impressive this team is looking heading into the final 3 games of the season, albeit on the bye week this week, and maybe even get into a little preview of the Lock Shop tomorrow as we hope to keep our heater going. Again, if you've never seen the Lock Shop or heard it, we do it Tuesdays and Fridays, but best bet is just to go on to wherever you're getting the Winnipeg Sports Talk podcast, put in Lock Shop, hit subscribe. We'll have a new episode tomorrow, getting ready for week 8 in the National Football League. Before we get going, I have to thank the people that make this show happen, and that is our great family of sponsors, including Princess Auto, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Not Auto Corp, Canadian Club, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, and of course our betting partner, Coolbet Canada. A busy night in the National Hockey League as well. We'll get to some Coolbet lines and everything happening tonight as well as Thursday Night Football a little bit later on. But let's get to it and welcome in Michael Remis before Ken Wiebe joins us to talk Jets and much more in a few minutes on the program. Remo, what's up? How are you?
I'm feeling great. I guess I'm a big star now, right? I got quoted in the Athletic, making headlines here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to
what a quote.
Yeah, what a quote. We'll get to that. I'm looking forward to the show. We have Jets hockey tonight. A lot of late games. I did watch the Oilers Flyers yesterday, which was a pretty entertaining game, as well as the Blackhawks Leafs. And of course, I can't remember an edition of Sports Center that was like, stop what you're doing and watch. And I don't really watch Sports Center anymore because
they're banned from your dial, the entire network.
Well, I have to watch the Jets games, but I don't know, highlight shows. I don't know if they're as in 2021. But as far as news show, that was it. And that Kyle Beach interview, I mean, how could you not sit there and get extremely emotional? I don't know if we were starting with that. I think we kind of have to. But yeah, I'm doing okay. But I was pretty rattled after that.
Yeah, no, I was too. Yeah, if you check my Twitter, an epic quote from Michael Remis on the current state of the radio business in Sean Fitzgerald's article. He was doing a little feature on Sakaris and Price and what they're doing, and made mention of our operation here and what we've been doing since TSN shut down. And Remo got a couple of quotes in, which
Should I pull it up right now? Here, do you want me to pull this up?
Okay, let's do that, because this will be discussed later on with Dustin Nielson, who I will say is holding it down about as well as anybody could on AM radio right now with the current state of the industry, albeit they're self-financing their own ratings promo, and they're giving away used DVDs that he will not be watching anymore, as well as a whole bunch of self-finance things. So anyways, Dusty's the best. He's got a very bright future. His partner, Lieutenant Eric, one of the most talented guys. But yes, here's the quote, referring to Sports Talk, Winnipeg Sports Talk. After almost 8 months, he said they've recorded nearly 1 million combined podcast downloads and YouTube views, getting very close to the million. We'll make a big deal out of that when it happens. Here's the quote. People say that I'm going to try to do this in Remis's voice too.
Oh,
people say that I miss traditional radio, said Remis. I'm like, guys, radio is gone. It's dead. End quote.
I mean, okay, I'll give you the backstory. So I had a post on LinkedIn, and I don't usually post on LinkedIn. It's a business, social network where everyone just talks about.
I thought that was a dating app.
No.
I'm just joking.
You're gonna have to get on there now.
I'm not on it either.
Because of LinkedIn, I was quoted in this.
You know what? You're right. You're right. It was a great. We don't have a PR department. It was basically a random LinkedIn post that got us included in the article.
Yeah, everyone's on LinkedIn just talking about how great they are at their job, and I never felt that I had anything to share on there. And we started this up. I was like, okay, maybe I'll post something once in a while, tell everyone how great I'm doing. And so I had this post, and I was like, you know what, we're closing in on 1 million views. I built this new studio office in my basement. Sure, I'll make a post. It got an extremely positive reaction. A lot of different people liking it and commenting, which I was very appreciative and a bit overwhelmed by. And then Sean saw it, and he said, hey, I'm doing a story on Sekeres and Price because they're just opening a new studio. Can I interview you for this? And I said, no one's ever asked me to interview for anything. Usually I'm asking other people. I was pretty honored that I respect Sean's work, that he asked me, and he asked me about the quote, and the full quote was, I was just saying, we have people in chat say that they miss the radio, and I was like, I compared it to when Apple removed the headphone jack. Everyone was really upset about it, and a couple years later, no one's talking about it, and I think this is just removing the headphone jack just maybe a bit earlier than you'd like, and everyone's adapting and adjusting, and our podcast downloads are increasing. We're hitting new highs every week. We hit a new high on Tuesday. And our YouTube views are getting more, and we're approaching 1 million combined downloads plus views. So it's an exciting time, and I guess I'll have to post on LinkedIn and tell everyone how awesome we are.
Yeah, just post the quote.
Just post. And sorry to all my colleagues who still work in radio, I guess, right?
Hey,
sorry,
there's still a lot of people doing great things in radio, but I mean the industry is completely different now. There's no doubt about it, and you know what? Hey. We got a kick in the ass and whatever in February and, gave this thing a shot. And I guess first things first, without our sponsors and most importantly, the people that are with us every day, this isn't happening right now. So, we do have a great amount of gratitude to all of you. We appreciate the support. And it was good to get that out. I mean, bottom line is we're doing this here in Winnipeg. We're focused on Winnipeg. We're focused on the Winnipeg teams, and we'll continue to do so. But we still do have the opportunity with the channel as we've grown it, to do some more things outside of what we're doing on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. But right now, we want to make sure that we're keeping this going on a daily basis right now with the latest and a place for Winnipeg sports fans to come through. And I know most people probably consume this on the podcast, certainly with the numbers that we see. But the people that are with us every day when we do the show live from 1 to 3 have created a whole nother community in the live chat with some great characters and people that we love seeing every day. And I'm always paying attention to what's going on over there, and some great discussions as well. Now, and this is sort of a transition from a bit of a fun way to start the program to the serious stuff that we do have to get to that you mentioned, Reem, because while when we're joking about, the Jets and the Bombers and, obviously the Bomber conversations have all been just about unanimously positive, with the exception of Wayne Jones, who I know is here, who for whatever reason still takes shot at our guy, Mike O'Shea. And obviously the Jets are a polarizing team. There's many polarizing topics. I shouldn't say as much a polarizing team. But I mean, that's all about, who should be on the first line? Should Maurice break up Scheifele, Wheeler, and Connor? Should they be playing 7 defensemen? I mean, all those sort of just fun sports talk conversations. But all of that is secondary right now to what is happening. And it's a reckoning in the National Hockey League, in the sports world, starting in Chicago with the Chicago Blackhawks. And everyone that was involved in that team. And it goes right from the top to John McDonough, Stan Bowman out, of course. Still waiting to hear what happens with Joel Quenneville, who stunningly was actually on the bench yesterday for the Florida Panthers. I mean, the optics on that, frankly, unbelievable. And Winnipeg Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff, who's going to be having a meeting with Gary Bettman on Monday. And I think that the fate of both of those individuals would be up in the air, to say the least. But this isn't about them. This is about Kyle Beach. And the incredible courage that he's shown throughout this to come forward initially. I mean, when this event happened 11 years ago was commendable. And the way he was treated, the way he was left alone is, one of the great disgraces in the history of the National Hockey League. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And, watching that yesterday, you mentioned Remis. I mean, I was absolutely stunned. And I'm sure a lot of people that are with us right now in the chat probably felt the same way. I was finishing up a bunch of stuff after the program, doing a little bit of work on the other side of things. Well, you got the pods up. I was listening to O-Dog and the guys, talk about the Leafs sucking on overdrive and having some fun. And I usually back that up. So I'm not, anyways, it was getting close to 5. And they made mention, and we already knew that John Doe was going to reveal himself in an interview with Rick Westhead. So I, like you, made a point of turning SportsCenter on right at 5 o'clock. Laura Dykin opened, turned it over to Rick. And I, like everyone, sat there in stunned silence watching Kyle Beach talk about what had happened to him, what the last 11 years had been like, what the effect that had taken on him, and the way that it was mismanaged back in 2010, and what that did to the rest of his career and really his life. And I was stunned. I'm still not really over it, to be honest. Last night I was planning on doing a few things. I didn't do a damn thing. I sat there, I looked at the television, I had a game on, I didn't put the sound on. I was reading every article I could. I mean, the people that have been reporting on this, the people that have actually been on this, and Rick Westhead, top of the list. I've never claimed, in fact, I've been quite clear, I'm not a journalist. I have no journalism background. I mean, I'm a sports nerd, I'm an entertainer, and I'm someone that has a lot of fun doing what we do every day, but I'm not a journalist. I mean, I'll try and ask the questions that I think need to be asked when I have a guest on to do that. But I mean, the journalism of the real journalism is a higher level that has, it takes the right person that has the courage. And we're going to talk a lot about courage. The courage of Kyle Beach to come forward. The courage of Rick Westhead to probably continue butting heads as he tried to get this story, is commendable. And then there was a bunch of other people. I mean, Katie Strang at The Athletic deserves a lot of credit. And then there's a lot of questions, to be honest, about the guys that, guys that I am on good terms with and have had, great conversations with over the years as to where have they been through all of this. And, you mentioned Sakaris and Price. It was a very interesting, you can maybe go to their Twitter feed if you'd like to hear it. Darren Drager was on with them yesterday, and Matt asked him, about the, where have the insiders been on all of this? I mean, how did this sort of just come out? And it's been Rick Westhead doing all of the work. And it was a difficult question, I think, for Dregs. I appreciated his honesty in answering it. First and foremost, effusive praise for the work that Rick's done. But it has seemed like there's been a real disconnect. And I think it's part of a bigger conversation about, this hockey world, how people get to the spots that they've been in, how they maintain these relationships, and what takes a back seat to some of that. And obviously with what's happened to Kyle Beach, it has been an egregious oversight of many people not doing the right thing. Now, I'm hesitant to jump to the conclusions that many have before hearing people out. And I do want to hear from Kevin Cheveldayoff. I'd like to hear from Mark Chipman as well. And, I know Mike McIntyre's got an article in the Free Press that came out last night saying that, the True North, believes that Kevin Cheveldayoff has been forthright and, has told them everything that he knew. And I guess we can look at these statements, and we're going to talk about it with Ken coming up. These were done by lawyers. This is very serious. I understand, getting legal counsel on something like this because it is an incredibly serious and in some cases, not necessarily for Chevy, but there are some people that probably their negligence could borderline on being criminal because of what happened afterwards with Bradley Aldrich. So it's a horrible, horrible situation. And we'll talk about the aftermath of this. But right off the bat of the program, the thing that I think everyone needs to do is recognize what Kyle Beach has done coming forward, telling his story. Because as he mentioned, the toughest thing to watch of that entire interview was when Rick was asked, if he had any regrets, and he apologized to the victims that came after him. There's a lot of people that have apologizing to do. Kyle Beach isn't one of them. And yet there it is, the victim shouldering that sort of burden afterwards. And I said it yesterday on Twitter, the way this has been handled is as reprehensible as maybe anything that I've heard in sports. There's been a bunch of, the U.S. gymnastics, as Remis talked about yesterday, certainly would be right up there. And we think back of the culture of silence on things that Hamilton worked on through the Stain in the Game series on Graham James. It all comes back to, covering up, people taking care of themselves first, looking out and forgetting about the people that, many of them were there to protect. So I've got incredible respect for the people that have brought this to the forefront. And I think maybe some of us look at some things a little bit differently. When it comes to the media, when it comes to the hockey world, when it comes to the relationships. And I know there's a lot of people right now, because I'm hearing it nonstop, that are uncomfortable with, with just being a fan, with supporting the league, with supporting the teams the way they do. And the one thing I'll say about Kyle Beach, he's a hero for a number of reasons, but one of them is that there has to be significant and lasting change coming out of this. Remo, let me ask you this, because Kenny's going to come on in just a second, and we're going to get to this, and we will talk about the game tonight. Eric Carney looks like he's going to be making his first start for the Winnipeg Jets tonight. But Remo, when you watched that, and it was over, what did you do? How are you feeling? I just sat back in literally stunned silence for probably 10 or 15 minutes, just trying to wrap my head around what I had, because we read a lot of the horrible details in the report. But it takes on a whole nother level when you actually hear from the victim, speak from the heart about what he'd gone through. And I'll tell you what, that ramped up, I think, a lot of the heat on some of the people that are still in this story that their fates haven't been determined. And one of those, of course, is Kevin Cheveldayoff, along with Joel Quenneville, who unbelievably was on the bench last night in the NHL. And that's another thing we'll talk about a little later on.
Yeah, I watch it with my wife, and you had to sit still. You couldn't move. You got emotional. It was a difficult watch, but something you have to see in it. It's hard to believe that a league that we've all watched for a long time, that you care about, that you follow, could turn their back on someone who needed help. And for him to describe what it was like watching Brad Aldrich, celebrate with the Stanley Cup at the parade, or have his day with the cup while no one seemed to care about his feelings. Extremely disappointing. This is such an avoidable thing to, that it didn't need to happen. And hearing him talk about, his emotions towards the other victim who was 16 years old, and him having regret for not doing more. And then you hear his conversations with the doctor, who tried to tell him that, it was his own fault for that.
That guy. And there could be criminal charges on him. I did see that they're looking back into that from yesterday.
So
the mental skills coach.
And again, this is why people struggle so hard to come forward. And then I was just scrolling Twitter after seeing, the outpouring of support from him, and I saw a number of, people who are involved in the Larry Nassar lawsuit, Allie Raisman, the gymnast, and who was Rachel Denhollander, who's kind of started that thing going. Everyone in support, and it's pretty overwhelming. And I don't want to downplay anything, that happened to him, but I'm just seeing this all go down. The whole thing is extremely sad, and it was just so avoidable, and it really didn't need to happen. And it's just, that's the toughest part to understand, why,
there will be good that comes out of this, but it's because of the work of the Rick Westheads, and it's because of the courage of the Kyle Beaches, and it sure as hell has nothing to do with anybody that was part of that 2010 Stanley Cup champion team, other than Kyle Beach. All right, we're going to get to Ken Wiebe coming up in just a minute. There is a Jets game tonight, Jets and LA Kings. Of course, Kenny and Rennie, and a busy day for the K&R boys because they are going to be coming up right after we are finished live on YouTube at 3 o'clock. So for everyone watching live on YouTube, make sure you stick around and just head over to the channel. And then the guys will be doing another late shift tonight. And yes, as I said, I am filling in for one Ren on Ken and Ren Saturday night. Before that, do want to thank our friends at Culligan Water, newest sponsor on Winnipeg Sports Talk, family-owned locally here in Winnipeg for 65 years, quenching the thirst and hydrating the community. The Culligan man and Culligan has been the go-to people for everything to do with water for your business and your family for 65 years. Water softeners and filters, whole home systems, drinking water systems, bottled water coolers and bottle-free coolers, not to mention water delivery services citywide, and commercial and industrial water products and solutions for your business. Water is such an important part of being healthy and going forward with your life and taking care of those around you. You need to drink it. Get the best from Culligan. They're at 1200 Sargent Avenue, 694-5180. You can find them online at drinkculligan.com. Crazy weather today, foggy. It almost looked like that ice fog that we get in the winter when it gets real cold. It's not real cold yet, but that's coming just around the corner. And again, don't be that guy that waits till it's minus 35 to realize, God damn it, I need a new battery. Be proactive and do it with the best, the battery experts and the locally owned business that will give you the best price on a battery, regardless of what you need. Automotive batteries, $89.50 with core exchange, or delivered within city limits, $109.50 with a $15 recycling rebate when the core is returned. And it's much more than just automotive batteries, boat batteries, sled batteries, literally anything that needs a charge. Manitoba Batteries got you hooked up, but make sure you have covered all your bases heading into the winter. Find them at 1026 Logan. You can call them at 783-8787 or online at manitobabattery.com. They'll come to you and save you money and time from hitting up any of those big box stores. And hey, before we get Ken in, had a great, was down at Vita Health this morning, meeting a good friend of mine, and was mentioning, he's a regular listener of the program, and, had mentioned, I was going to the game. I realized I didn't have a jersey. Well, I've been listening on the program. I went down to Royal Sports and, I hadn't been in a while and could not believe just what an incredible store is and the amount of selection. He's in operations. They got so much stuff. I don't know how they handle it, but I'll tell you what, if you're a sports fan, there is no better place than Royal. An incredible selection of Bomber gear right now, jerseys, of course, the Jets season underway, all sorts of Jets merchandise, NFL, CFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, it's all there. But it's not just merch. They've got King Skate, Snow and Surf with some really cool stuff. Massive snowboard sale last week. All of that stock is in. And of course, they are the hockey superstore for over 35 years in Winnipeg. It's Royal Sports, the OG 750 Pembina Highway. Pop down and see them and tell them your friends at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. All right, let's get to the Jets. And of course, the biggest story in all of sports with Chris Beach's interview yesterday with Ken Wiebe. of Sportsnet, and of course, one half of Kenny and Rennie, who will be on following us 3 p.m. today on YouTube. Wiebe, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, Huss. Obviously, much like you, a lot to digest here in the last little bit. I mean, I commend the incredible courage, as you have already mentioned, but I wanted to say too. I mean, I just I'm so impressed by what Kyle Beach was able to do in stepping forward and sharing his story. It was gut wrenching. It was emotional. It was so many things. I mean, I know you mentioned a lot of the incidents. How about him sharing what his mother felt, like the guilt of a parent, and the fact that Kyle Beach is saying sorry is sad, quite frankly. It is impressive that he takes ownership of what happened to future victims, but he has nothing to apologize for. The system failed him dramatically, and that system needs to be changed, and people need to support him and help him as he moves forward. And I think that's something that I was very impressed by, the outpouring of support for him from people like Sheldon Kennedy, Todd Holt, people that were, in Swift Current and that have gone through similar things. So it just can't be that hollow, we can't ever let this happen again. That's true. But the fact that Sheldon Kennedy has to come on and say, this wasn't supposed to happen again after I came forward, and now it happened again. So to me, I mean, there's so many layers and so much to unpack, but I am so impressed by what Beach was able to do yesterday. And also too, as you touched on, I mean, just extraordinary work by people like Rick Westhead, like Katie Strang, who I'm proud to say I've known her for a very long time. She's an incredible human being to go along with one of the best reporters that digs into the subjects that are not very comfortable. And yeah, I mean, I listened to what you said. I mean, people who cover the game, people need to do more. I mean, I don't think this was an elaborate cover up by members of the media, but I think it's important that everyone, does their part to make sure that people are held to account, and that, some of the standards that we think need to improve get to a place where they do improve.
You know what? And a lot of this talk is about the culture of hockey and what needs to change to prevent this from hearing again. And you know what? There has been a ton of people stepping up and, supporting Kyle Beach publicly through something as simple as just, a tweet. We stand with you, Kyle, that on social media. Deafening silence from the current members of the National Hockey League, I must say. Yeah,
I mean, I would say there's a lot of legally...
Has there been one active player that said anything publicly really supporting Kyle Beach? I haven't seen it.
Well, I think today there'll be more of that you would hear today. I think Tyson Barrie, I saw, was quoted somewhere. I believe Daniel Nugent-Bowman had something with him. And first and foremost, I think yesterday, at the time it was happening yesterday, there weren't, I think you saw Alex DeBrincat say things like this is something that needed to be done in terms of the removal of some of the people in Chicago. But I would expect we hear from a lot more players today in terms of voicing their support and things of that nature. But for sure, I think that, Kyle Beach is someone who needs support. And I think you're going to see a lot of people moving forward to do whatever they can to help support him, because as we mentioned, the system failed him. And to see him speak so rawly and emotionally about some of those, people that didn't step forward to him that quite frankly should have, whether that be the NHLPA doctors or other people, whether it be teammates, whether it be organizations, whether it be certain individuals.
Everyone.
He was failed by the entire system, Huss, and that's part of the problem. So that's what needs to be changed. And how we get to the point of those things changing, that requires a lot further discussion, but it can't just be window dressing. Actual appropriate actions need to be taken. And until that happens, I think there will be a lot more questions that are being asked and quite frankly, must be asked.
I keep coming back to this. And again, you played at a much higher level. I did some minor hockey. I played through my teens and then, was off doing other things. So, I was never playing at a level, where, you were really, it was fun. It was more recreational. It wasn't really that competitive. My brother was a very different story. He was a good player, played in Europe for a while. You did the same. But the one thing from being around hockey people, I mean, you hear this from top to bottom, young people, what they're being told when they're playing, pro athletes, and certainly people within the game, that, it's all, character is so important. Courage is so important. And I mean, honestly, my takeaway is that like all of that has been BS. I mean, for so much, for us focusing on that sort of thing, like where was the character, where was the courage of so many people at every level? And I mean, the Hawks and that management group is taking the most heat, as they should, because that was where it started. Blackhawks players are certainly, mentioned in that report, the way they treated their teammate, which was disgraceful and reprehensible. And even going to the NHLPA, and Donald Fair put out, in the cloak of darkness, midnight, put out a tweet last night, saying that, it was unacceptable that, the doctor didn't come forward, even though there is some client privilege. But I have to say, Ken, I mean, I've always heard these people talk about hockey culture. And, I've sort of been here there for the conversation, because there's been some things that have rubbed me the wrong way. But for a sport that prides itself on courage and character, how there could be such a void from literally so many people and in every level, to me is something that it certainly gives a lot more credence to many of those complaints that a lot of people from outside the game have been having for years.
Yeah, for sure. And I would also say, I think our friend Patrick Williams had a good tweet yesterday about it too. And that whole, it's easy to call someone a bust and say, what's wrong with this guy? How come he never made it? Like, this is the extreme example, but there's a lot of things happening in a lot of people's lives. So let's just tread a little bit more carefully in how we rush to judgment on what kind of character someone has or why they didn't pan out. I mean, this is just one of many, many examples. But I mean, accountability and building a culture, those things are important for winning teams. But let's not forget the humanity element and treating people better and being good human beings. I mean, you got to be that first and foremost. And I think that is something that, will be brought forward as we move along here.
Now, I do want to get to the game and a couple of the other things around this, but we've got to speak about Kevin Cheveldayoff right now. And
for sure,
I mean, you had I think a very fair piece that was out, I guess, early yesterday, certainly before the Beach interview came out, and I thought you handled it, well. Saying there are a lot of questions. We need to hear from Kevin Cheveldayoff. He's going to be speaking with the commissioner. Right now, we've had 2 lawyered up statements, essentially, and that's been it from Cheveldayoff. And I'm sure that those were probably done very carefully with people that knew what they're doing. And listen, I do understand why they're dealing with legal counsel right now, because of the seriousness of this. I couldn't help but think that the interview, like everything sort of changes once you really hear from the victim. And I guess my question for you is right now, does what we heard from Kyle Beach change anything with Kevin Cheveldayoff, and maybe your thoughts on where the Winnipeg Jets general manager's situation right now heading into his meeting with Gary Bettman, as well as just the public image of him, this hockey team, True North Sports and Entertainment, considering what we've learned in the past week?
Yeah, I think it's essential that Kevin Cheveldayoff puts a human element on his position, on what he knew, who he told, what has been done since. All of those things are of essential importance. We understand why the statement was handed out. We understand, what the lawyer would advise. As I wrote, I think this is a situation where, the lawyer is telling you, to be vague intentionally, probably. But I think he needs to provide some important answers. And after that, I think Mark Chipman will have a responsibility to share why he is either standing by his general manager, or if there is another decision that is made. So to me, I think it's essential for those two to both be speaking publicly. I'm not sure that they will do so. I expect they would do so, but it's important that, here are 2 things for the people who, wanted immediate dismissal. I think that Mike wrote this, and I think that it's obviously fair and accurate. I think that the way True North is viewing it is Kevin Cheveldayoff was forthcoming with them if Cheveldayoff lied about his role to True North, I think there would have already been a move made. And secondly, Huss, what does the NHL think? What is what are their thoughts? What are the other owners' thoughts on the matter and how things will proceed? I mean, obviously we know the Joel Quenneville meeting is happening this afternoon. Does that have any impact on the next decisions that are made? I'm not sure, but it'll be very interesting to see how things are handled moving forward. And as we both have said, there are more questions that need to be answered, and the people that can provide those answers, are Kevin Cheveldayoff, and I think to a degree, Mark Chipman.
Yeah, and I mean, Mark, as he will be speaking to how his organization is handling this going forward. I mean, obviously, he's got nothing. Well, he may have some comments on, what this means going forward for the hockey world and some lessons to be learned from it. And he's a very respected individual in this community. And I think people will listen to it. But I mean, this is basically about Kevin Cheveldayoff's survival as the general manager of the Winnipeg Jets. This particular topic, the big topic, is far greater than one individual. For sure. And I'm here for the fact that he was, the low guy on the ladder in that meeting. And I realized it was a difficult situation. And I've thought a lot about this. And again, I'm not sure if you've gone through the entire report. The one thing that is somewhat unclear, and I think that will come out, is how much detail of what had happened came into that meeting. Because it doesn't seem like, I have a hard time imagining if everything we learned in that report was coming out in that meeting. I mean, then absolutely everyone should be, I don't think there's a place in the game for people that would turn a blind eye to that in the hopes of just putting it off and winning a Stanley Cup, especially with everything that happened afterwards, him getting a day with the cup, him being there with all those things. But I do wonder, if that will change anything in the minds of people if they didn't have all the information. And then putting myself in that situation, if you're the low guy on the ladder, you're on your way to the cup final, you're relatively new in your job, and you've been told by your boss and the guy running everything that they're taking care of it. I mean, at least in the short term, I think you would have confidence that was being done. So, I mean, it's a horrible situation for him, as well. But absolutely, Ken, I mean, when you look at the way it was handled going forward and what happened to Chris Beach afterwards, and, certainly, I mean, he played again in Rockford the next year. And if I'm not mistaken, Kevin Cheveldayoff had another year, the assistant GM, before he became the general manager of the Winnipeg Jets. And then that was a year that, I was reading yesterday a report, Kyle Beach, Kyle Beach played there on Rockford the next year, and there was a report from one of the coaches that it seemed like he was still having some issues with the Bradley Aldridge, with the thing that happened with Brad last year. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions about how it was handled afterwards with the victim, as opposed to just turning the other way. So, I mean, I don't know. There's some real tough questions to be asked. And I'm with you from your piece yesterday, man. I think before anything happens going forward, when it comes to representing this hockey club and to a greater extent, this community on the world stage, those do need to be answered.
Yeah, for sure. And this isn't just about, Twitter reaction. It's about how things move forward on a lot of levels. What is the greater, what do fans of the Jets think? I mean, all of those things need to be considered for sure. But ultimately, it's up to True North to do what they believe is the right thing moving forward.
Ken, there was a lot of tone deaf comments in the league yesterday. I mean, Dave Tippett was asked about it, and he said, I don't want to comment. I've got some good friends over there. And I mean, that's exactly, I think, in a lot of ways, what has prevented, the truth coming out and these sort of things before, people protecting each other's. And listen, Jonathan Toews is an incredible hockey player. I mean, he's a legend in Chicago. But man, I think his image took a bit of a tarnish yesterday too, when, he spent the time talking about, how great Al McNeil and Stan Bowman were afterwards. And then there's Duncan Keith. I mean, I don't think there's many people that thought Duncan Keith was being entirely truthful yesterday at his interview. What do you make of the situation of the former Blackhawks that are still in the league right now, what we have heard from them and what we haven't, or what they're saying now 11 years after the fact?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some revisionist history going on some fronts for sure. And I think this just goes back to the hockey culture. I think it's easy for folks to say, wave a magic wand and make this all go away. This is just another example of the full scale changes that are required in order to make these changes effective and so that they can move forward. There's just
how do you get people to value the truth and doing the right thing over protecting people that have helped them?
Sure,
that maybe they owe one to.
For sure, but I think it's just it's the this has been ingrained for a long time, so it's hard to imagine. This is the same system that failed Kyle Beach is what these players were brought up in. It's what the coaches, managers, all of them. Like, that's why the changes need to be happening, and it's not going to happen overnight, is what I'm saying. And I'm not saying they sweep it under the rug. I'm saying it's going to take people digging in and putting in the work required in order to create those kind of environments where this stuff just simply can't happen. People must be able to feel comfortable coming forward. And first of all, you shouldn't have to deal with it to begin with. But if you do, there have to be things in place where you can come forward and know that, that's the other part. Beach having to explain that he has no personal relationship with Brent Sopel and Nick Boynton. I don't have them in my phone. This is not something where I had to coerce someone to believe me and to tell me that it was the truth. And it wasn't my word against everybody else's. That's sad, right? That's sad, right? You hear everything, where the team is so tight and everything else. You needed to have support, you know what? And that's something that needs to be very, very, that has to be the priority. You need to be having support, and we need to be better as humans moving forward.
Do you think there'll be any? I mean, there was a number of players. I correct me if I'm wrong. I believe 37 in the 30s, somewhere, of all the people that were contacted, including Blackhawks players. They were in the 30s of people that refused to participate. Right. And I couldn't help but think that of Duncan Keith yesterday when he was asked. He goes, "Oh no, they didn't ask me anything," and no one asked him, "Well, did you refuse to? Did you say you weren't going to participate?" How big of a cloud is this going to be over players that were there? Because we've heard a guy like Brent Soap, who's been pretty outspoken about all of this, as a member of that team, and we all remember he won the cup, but then he, Dustin Byfuglien, and Andrew Ladd were traded right afterwards to the Atlanta Thrashers, so they weren't there afterwards. They were certainly there in the aftermath of the incident, depending on who you believe and how much that team knew, basically during that cup final and afterwards. But those others, I do imagine that there's going to be some hard questions, especially for people that refuse to participate in the investigation.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, Duncan Keith has to be asked. He's on the team and he's still an active player, right? I mean, that he has to be in the report. I mean, I just don't. I mean, again, I understand that it's not. It wasn't subpoenaed or anything of that nature, I guess, because of the way the case is. But yeah, I mean, it's something that you shouldn't be able to just run and hide from, I guess. I mean, we know Kyle Beach didn't make it to the Chicago Blackhawks as an NHLer, but he was still around at training camps and things of other things. So I mean, it's terrible, the type of behavior that was mentioned in the report in terms of what he had to go through and the verbal assaults from who are supposed to be people that are in your corner. I mean, that's unfortunate and should never have happened either. So there again, that leads back to environment. There needs to be an environment where that just isn't happening. And until they get to that place, there are going to be problems that need to be attacked head on for sure. But yeah, I mean, questions will continue to be asked of the important people, of the people who are still active in the league. And yeah, I mean, they're going to have to be, answer some of those questions for sure. And, but I'm not sure what answer other than I wish I had done more is going to be acceptable. And even then, a lot of people aren't going to be satisfied by just that. I think you see people saying sorry and I wish I had been able to do more, but ultimately
that's better than lying about it.
No, absolutely right. And that's the other part about Jonathan Toews. I think he did make that clear. I mean, everyone is focusing on the comments about Bowman and Alma Isaac, but I think those players can't help but feel guilt about it. And I don't think that any amount of apologizing is going to make people feel better about it. But I think that's not what it's about. It's about providing the support to Kyle Beach and every other person who went through anything similar during their careers. And like I said, this comes down to being better human beings and doing our best to make it a better place moving forward, because no one can take away the pain that Kyle Beach suffered. Now it's all about providing a better environment so that that doesn't happen again and that people can support Kyle Beach. And I love the fact that he wants to meet the kid from Michigan and that he's going to be able to there to help survivors. And, again, that's so important, the providing the safeguards so that these folks can move forward with their lives, never mind their careers. I mean, this guy's still playing hockey. I love the fact that he's still chasing his dream, but, he's paid an enormous price that, no amount of a settlement will ever satisfy.
No, there's no doubt about it. Ken Wiebe is with us. I know he and Sean, I'm sure, will be tackling this and many more stories when KNR gets going coming up at 3 p.m. I do want to get to the game tonight, but one more question on this. And I think it's a fair question. It's a difficult one for guys like us. I mean, I sort of a different background coming in, kind of starting this stuff, being here in Winnipeg. You've been here in Winnipeg for your entire career as well, but have been very close to this hockey club. But I mean, there's a lot of, I think, legitimate questions about the hockey media, the insiders. The average fan is going, these guys are so tied into the National Hockey League. How the heck is it Rick Westhead and Katie Strang doing all of it? And what was with the silence throughout the summer when this came up? I guess the question is the hockey media in some ways complicit in this, Ken, or are people missing the point if they throw those sort of barbs?
Well, I think some people definitely feel that way, and I can understand why. But what I would explain on that front too, Huss, is that Rick and Katie, their job is dedicated to unearthing these type of stories. They're not running a beat on a day-to-day basis. And that's not an excuse. That's just the fact of the matter is they're given the extra time. Our industry is, nobody knows better than you and I, Huss. The industry has changed a whole lot. You don't have 2 or 3 people on the beat. You don't have, you mentioned Hammer. Jeff spent 3 years on that project, right? These aren't things that just happen where you say, hey, Kyle Beach, do you want to share your harrowing story with me? This happens from Rick gaining the trust of the individual and building that relationship over a long time. By no means am I taking media off the hook. I mean, I'm also saying I don't think this was a big cover-up by members of the media. You saw, Mark Lazarus and Scott Powers doing incredible work in Chicago in The Athletic. Scott was quite forthcoming. He had been around the team daily. This had never been brought forward. So, I mean, when you're around the team a lot, you may hear whispers, Huss, and there's no doubt about that. But the fact that it took this long for someone to come forward, and they're the other thing too. So if the Rockford Ice Hogs had a dedicated beat writer at that time, I don't look at what Kyle said about it. He buried this, didn't talk about it even with his family for almost an entire decade. So I don't think there would have been whispers from Kyle. Maybe he has a relationship with a reporter and says, hey man, guess what happened to me in 2010. I just don't think that some people that think there was some kind of elaborate cover up. I don't think that was the case by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, maybe the antennas of all reporters have to be up a little bit more, but that's the other part. So there needs to be an environment where maybe, if the player is not comfortable, going to the league or to the PA, maybe there is someone else that he can feel comfortable, and maybe that person whispers something to a reporter, and maybe something can be done to bring that to light. But again, I think that the people criticizing the regular reporter, if you will, they are missing the point in that these people are dedicated their lives to telling these types of important and critical stories that need to be done. But they're also allowed the opportunity and the time to sink their teeth into something like that. But you're right, Huss. Everyone needs to be better. I think Pierre LeBrun just had a column where that was part of the headline, and he's right. Everyone needs to do a better job and do their part. If they hear that information, absolutely, you can't bury it or sweep it under the rug. Otherwise, you do, like you said, become complicit.
Kenny, I appreciate your honesty on all of this. And, I just quickly, and I guess some people are asking me because, the time I worked within True North and,
Sure.
starting with the Moose, Mr. Pastry, what's the Chipman culture like? I'm not sure if it was the Chipman culture, but I can tell you, he's as principled an individual I've ever worked for. As an employee from day one, I was respected. I was taken care of. I was given opportunities to grow in my role, and I loved every day, and I've always been thankful for that. But again, I mean, the stuff that we're talking about, it was a much smaller operation then as to what it is right now. And I'm not suggesting that it's different. I think, if anything, the principles that the team was run by and was kind of put upon me from Mark right at the top, I would imagine are more than ever, not only part of the organization, but, literally in the mission statement. And I mean, we've already seen people throwing stuff out from tomorrow, so it's certainly there. But, well, actually, there's no buts. That's the answer to the question. I mean, I loved every minute of it, and I have the utmost respect for Mark Chipman and everything that he's done in this community. And I can't imagine, to be honest, what he's struggling with right now, because I certainly know that, the contributions Kevin Cheveldayoff's made, and the way Chevy's been since he's been a member of the Jets organization, what he's done in the community, the way he's dealt with people. But again, this is one of those things that pulls the cover off things that happened before any of these guys were here in Winnipeg. But unfortunately, it drags an organization like the Jets into it. And there's a lot of legitimate questions as to how the team goes forward. And I guess we'll be finding those out in the coming days and weeks as it pertains to Cheveldayoff's particular role as ongoing as the general manager of the Winnipeg Jets. And I want to be clear, I'm not making a judgment one way or the other, but I do think before we can do that, some people have already made their judgments. And I guess I understand, because we haven't heard from the other side, and there's some pretty damning evidence out there. But I certainly personally, I do want to hear what Chevy has to say. I'd love to hear what the organization has to say as well, and maybe find out a little bit more from those people, and in particular Kevin Cheveldayoff, about that meeting and how things went forward before I'll cast any my own personal opinion. But I understand on such a hot topic, something that affects people so viscerally, why people will have their opinions that they might not need to hear anything more. And, that's obviously their right. There is a hockey game tonight, Ken. And, lost in all of this, the fact the Winnipeg Jets are, in the middle of a road trip right now. Kind of a crazy start to the trip with that Anaheim game. Wasn't a Picasso by any stretch of the imagination. Frankly, a pretty ugly game. Pulled out of the fire in 19 seconds by Nikolai Ehlers in the last couple minutes of the game. I mean, just before we get to the Kings tonight, what did you think about the game against the Ducks and the late game heroics of Nikolai Ehlers to turn a 0 into 2 points in the standings?
Yeah, I think that the drought for Nikolai Ehlers is officially over, based on the zone entry machine, and also the play that he made on the Andrew Kopp goal was just absolutely exceptional. The one-man zone entry at work as usual. Really good play by Paul Stastny, and for many of your WST viewers, an Andrew Kopp special right there. I think he showed pretty good hands on that one. The guy that can't
finish.
Right. Yes, indeed. The guy who's worked very hard on becoming a better finisher once again is up there with 4 goals and 8 points or something along those lines. But for sure, Ehlers that was a kind of another one of those classic defining moments for him, where he kind of incredible shot off the face-off, but there too, another thing that shot doesn't happen without the box out by Paul Stastny, right? I mean, there's a bunch of little intricate plays. Kopp wins both those draws. The Jets took advantage of 2 icings by the Ducks. I mean, do I think that was not the template, that videotape? You learn from the mistakes. You learn, you can't spend. That was one of those classic nights where they got hemmed in their own end. They were chasing the puck a lot. The puck management was poor. Obviously 2 turnovers by Pierre-Luc Dubois, who had been playing great and did have a very impressive play on the Svechnikov goal. But just a reminder of the consistency that is required over a long season, that mistakes are going to happen. But at the same time, it's how those players respond to those mistakes. And the Jets responded by finding a way to get the job done after 2 glaring giveaways ended up in the back of the net. That would have been a kind of an easy game to fold. Take your puck and go home and say, well, try to get them next time. But instead, the Jets found a way to win. And as Andrew Kopp pointed out, hallmark of a good team is trying to find a way to win when you don't have your best. So the Jets were not at their best. They'll need to be a lot better tonight, but they found a way. So by no means can they afford to play poorly and then maybe rely on 19 seconds. But I would say that would go more in the pile of, fortunate to get away with a win. And Connor Hellebuyck played a humongous role in that. Their penalty kill was finally a little bit better, Huss, but still, when you're rolling at 60%, nobody's saying, "Hey, got that solved." But that was an important step for them. I mean, LA is missing a couple important defensemen tonight, in Drew Doughty and Sean Walker. Mitchell Clinton just tweeted the lines. It sounds like the Jets are still going to be rolling with 11-7. Blake Wheeler obviously getting back on the ice for them was a big development. I would anticipate there would be, I'm not sure, I would say maybe above 50% chance that Wheeler's back Saturday night, but that'll depend on how the next few days go. And I would imagine that Mark Scheifele will be back for Tuesday's game. Again, we'll wait and see about everything else, but I would imagine we'll see Mark Scheifele in that home game in Winnipeg.
You mentioned Connor Hellebuyck, and Hellebuyck was brilliant. This was sort of it was almost the template of what we've seen the last couple of years when the Jets will win. Sometimes maybe not playing very well, spending way too much time in their own end, chasing the puck, giving up too many shots, but Hellebuyck bailing them out. They're not going to have that tonight. Eric Comrie gets his first start. Big opportunity for the young man. Pretty cool. It's going to happen in LA at Staples Center. At a part where he spent a good majority of his younger years growing up and playing there. Much like the other topic we've said, I'm going to reserve judgment. A lot of people have already made judgment on Eric Comrie before he's even played a game. But I'm interested to see how he does today, as well as how the team plays in front of him. Because as I mentioned earlier on, maybe in the summer when we were talking about the fact that Comrie was going to be the backup for Connor Hellebuyck, that his teammates in the small amount of games that he actually played with the Winnipeg Jets, a couple of them I can remember some of the worst performances of those times in front of Eric Comrie. His teammates didn't do him very many favors. It doesn't seem like he has a clean slate, though, with much of the fan base, which he probably should. I think he's only played like 5 games for the Winnipeg Jets. A big opportunity, though, for him tonight, and I would suggest a very important one for him to come in and have a good game, not really for the fan base, but, for himself as well as the organization to prove that he's ready for this opportunity, the biggest one of his NHL career.
Yeah, I love the way that Eric Comrie has handled this entire situation in terms of, he's put the onus squarely on himself. He knows full well that his opportunities will be limited. This is one of the few times he'll get a start where it's not involved in the back-to-back scenario. It's one of the situations where, he'll be well rested. He's playing in a place where, he's comfortable with. It's his 3rd start against the LA Kings in what will be his 10th NHL start. He knows he has to perform. If you don't perform, you're going to be replaced. And he's openly embraced that. That's different than looking over your shoulder and seeing someone that's there to try to potentially take your job. I think the realization is important, but his focus has always been on the same thing. He's an incredibly diligent worker, and he knows this is his opportunity to try to prove it. He's going to be starting a game next week, whether it's against Chicago or the New York Islanders. There is a back-to-back next weekend. He's getting one of those games. This is a chance for him to get some, solid ground or build a bit of a foundation for himself. I was there in Columbus when he got his first NHL win. It was a wild game. I think, 6-5 or 5-4, whatever it was. He's a guy this is the first chance for him where he's been the clear-cut number 2, and now it's up to him to show if he can do it or not. I mean, Laurent Brossoit was, I think, the first star last night in the 3-2 overtime win. Not a lot of people were familiar. There was, when Laurent Brossoit was signed, Huss, who's this guy and why did he get a one-way contract?
Are you serious?
Well, there you go. Exactly. So Eric Comrie was a high draft pick. He's been a prospect for a while, but he's at that age where it's time to show whether or not he's capable of becoming an NHL goalie. And what we've talked about so often every time we discuss him, he will have put himself in the best opportunity possible in terms of his preparation. And, he talked about getting the mental skills coach in the summer. Based on listening to, he's a big golf fan. He listened to how many people have their own individual coaches. He went out and tried to make himself better. And we've seen him putting in the work. He's always one of the last guys off the ice. Does that translate into NHL wins? It's not going to take much longer to find out.
Well, and I'll say this. he's as easy as a guy to cheer for. I mean, we've dealt with a lot of players and a lot of people. I mean, I don't know if you'll find a better human being than Eric Comrie in and around NHL dressing rooms. And it would be great to see him, rise to the occasion, have a great game tonight, and, really establish himself as an NHLer. Big opportunity for tonight for him to maybe take that first step going forward. Just speaking of Comrie, were you in Colorado for his last Jets start, game number 81 of the 18-19 season? Do you remember that game, Ken?
That was a wild one, right? Or
that was the one. That was the old closed door meeting after one game before the playoffs. I mean, maybe the worst Jets performance in front of a goalie at any point that season. It was right when everything seemed to be blowing up. Buff smashing his stick on the boards when the power play stays out too long. I mean, everything was falling apart at the seams. Like, that was what Eric Comrie got in front of him for his last couple of starts as a Winnipeg Jets. So, as I say, give the guy a chance. We'll see what happens, and a big, big opportunity for the young man tonight. Just quickly, you mentioned Blake Wheeler back on the practice ice. Interesting comments from him yesterday with what he'd gone through, having to live in the basement at mom and dad's for 10 days and coming back. But he also said that, it was pretty awesome to see what the players had done stepping up in he and Mark Scheifele's absence, and that he wants to be 100% able to really contribute. And I believe his quote is not screw anything up. What did you make of what we heard from Blake Wheeler and probably the week and a half that he's had watching his teammates kind of get off the schneid, get the first 3 wins of the season without two of their most important players in the lineup?
Yeah, it seemed like Blake was in a pretty good mood, which isn't always the case in his media exchanges, as we've come to see over the years. He can be very enlightening when he is engaged, and that was one of those great examples. And it was great to see. And good on him for doing so. I mean, he didn't quite peel back the layers the way Tucker Poolman did, talking about his COVID experience. But obviously, it seemed like based on the commentary we had heard, whether it was Kyle Connor or Paul Stastny, it sounded like he had been doing better for quite some time. And I think he made the most of it, made sure he was getting his exercise in when he could. And, great for him to be able to, even though the interactions would not have been the same when you're quarantining at your parents' house, at least, mom and dad are in the room, in the house, and they're cooking for you. And some of those things were, I mean, he just wouldn't have, as the interview pointed out, he wouldn't have done that since high school. When he was 17, before he went to the USHL, it would have been his last year of high school when he spent a 10-day block or 7-day block with his parents or at their home. So yeah, I mean, smart of him. He handled himself well. I mean, obviously tipping the cap and stick taps to his teammates who've done a nice job. And he's going to be, we know he never lacks motivation, and he knows like Blake Wheeler wants to win. And the fact that he's seen some of his teammates take some important strides forward while playing elevated roles, I think he'd be happy to see that. And he will continue to be happy to see that when he gets put back into the lineup. So, I mean, good on some of those guys, whether it be Harkins, Vesalainen, Evgeny Svechnikov, as we talked about, doing a nice job in that role with Dubois and Kyle Connor. And I mean, hey, by next week or by Saturday night, we're going to see. I mean, I know everyone has answers. What's it going to look like going in? I mean, Paul Maurice definitely left the door open for, to Blake Wheeler to potentially come back he didn't come out and say it, but I mean, he said his ice time would not necessarily be at that 21-minute level. So that opens the door to, maybe he's playing with Dubois, maybe he's playing with Adam Lowry. I mean, we're going to see what happens, but I don't think it's a lot of people thinking that it's as simple as just simply reuniting Wheeler and Scheifele. I don't know that may be the case, but it won't be the case Saturday if he plays. And
it might not be with Kyle Connor. I mean, here's the thing. Right. I mean, like, Kyle Connor and Dubois have been pretty damn good together, Ken. I'm sure guys will chop this up on KNR, but I mean, if I'm Paul Maurice, and I believe, was it you or, I mean, when Dubois first came to the Winnipeg Jets, I believe that was the first combination that he tried. Yeah. And, they
Connor
tried a lot
Ehlers
of things last year.
Connor Ehlers and Dubois was where they started. And I think that Kyle Connor could, ride shotgun with Pierre-Luc Dubois for some time, whether that's with Blake Wheeler on the right or Svechnikov or even Andrew Kopp. Quite honestly, Huss, I think that we're going to see more of Andrew Kopp and Mark Scheifele, which when we saw that block right before when the first game that Wheeler missed and Scheifele still played. But is it Ehlers popping in there? Is it Wheeler? I'm not 100% sure, but I think we're going to see more of Kyle Connor and Dubois together. And this is not, as I've said before, nobody's been banging the drum for Evgeny Svechnikov more than I have. But I'm not willing to, I'm not saying that has to stay in the top 6 for the remainder of the year based on a 3 or 4 game window. So Wheeler has also shown some chemistry with Dubois, so he could be in there. Maybe, like I said, maybe they spread it out. I could see Wheeler with Paul Stastny in the middle. I could also see Wheeler with maybe Adam Lowry and Paul Stastny. I mean, I could see him back eventually with Mark Scheifele. Who knows? But the fact that Paul Maurice has a little few more options at his disposal, that will make the Jets a better team in the long run. And now it's about finding a comfortable amount of minutes for all the players who had earned a little bit of an enhanced role during this time.
Yeah, I mean, the options have always been there. I mean, you're the coach. You have all the options you want.
But now you've seen them. Now you've seen them in action.
In this case, I mean, it was going to take an injury maybe to see some of these things. And these guys have done themselves well to, I think, put themselves in a situation where they might be elevated, and certainly giving Paul many more options to, really to consider going into these games back at home when both is. Just final question, Sandy, you were wondering, no Wheeler tonight, but you do think that there might be a chance that he could play in San Jose?
I think the door is open. It'll depend how he feels, but also too, I mean, Blake wants to play, but he's not going to put himself, let me put it this way, he's not going to put himself at risk to play Saturday to miss Tuesday. But I feel that if he still felt good on the ice, or if there were no effects after skating yesterday and skating today and skating tomorrow at a practice, I could see a scenario where Blake does play. I'm not saying no, it's not a lead pipe lock or a guarantee, but I would not be surprised if he is able to play. I think he'd be back maybe Tuesday at the latest, barring any setbacks. But I could definitely see a possibility of him, or stronger possibility of him being in the lineup on Saturday night. And then I think the Jets do go back to a 12-6 situation. And I know that Paul Maurice has said that some things he's liked about 11-7. To me, it still is more a matter of necessity rather than something that they'll look at doing more going forward. But that goes back to the question we've had for a long time. I mean, the fourth line needs to play more, whether that means running a forward through with Tominato and Nash, or if it means having a full line. What we know, Huss, in November, the fourth line needs to play more than it did in October, or it's going to be a problem, whether that be in December or April.
No, it's a great point. Hey, folks, we got over 400 people in here. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. We need the likes. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that red subscribe button. And I hope you'll all stick around and head over to Kenny and Rennie right after Winnipeg Sports Talk. They'll be live at 3 p.m. and do the same on their channel. Kenny, what you got? Any guests coming up today? I know it's a little different than your normal post-game show. Tee up what's happening today at 3 p.m. And then, of course, what you and Sean will have after the game tonight, or frankly, this morning.
Exactly. Actually, we've got Frank Cervelli, our friend Frank from Daily Faceoff, will be joining us right out of the gate, roughly 3:05. And then we've got Jimmy Houston, one of the best play-by-play guys of all time, just retired this year, but Jimmy is going to join us at about 3:35 Central. So, and then tonight we'll have the late show, and then Hustler After Dark joining me on Saturday night, which I'm already looking forward to, especially when I know. I mean, hey, I love hanging out with you after midnight, Huss, but you also know that I sometimes turn into a pumpkin at that time. So it's good that it's a 6 o'clock start for us on Saturday.
Yeah. We'll still be able to get to last call and maybe a few after the game. Ken, I'm looking forward to the show today at 3 p.m. over on your YouTube channel. Thanks so much for doing this, and say hi to Rennie and the guests.
Will do. Thanks for having me as always, and appreciate the insight and the feedback from our listeners that we always try to take care of as well. Thanks for having me, and keep doing the good work on this important subject, Huss.
Right on. Thanks, pal. There's Ken Wiebe. Less than an hour from now, end of WST. Head on over, Kenny and Rennie, and make sure you're subscribed to their channel and check them out. Of course, Sean and Ken will also be on late night tonight after the game and after the IC guys do their thing. Hey, big thanks to Darb Yor. That's a hell of a super chat, Darb. We greatly appreciate the support. Everyone that's in here all the time, but that's a very, very nice super chat. Thanks very much, Darb. We love you. All right, we've got a few more things to get to. Dustin Nielson's coming up in just a couple minutes. Do want to thank our friends at Princess Auto for their great support, not only of Winnipeg Sports Talk, but also of curling here in the province of Manitoba. They're also sponsoring one of the big national events. And two of our most decorated teams, Mike McEwen's squad, as well as Jennifer Jones' squad, which we are all going to be pulling for, as well as the other Manitobans that end up making it to the Olympic trials. And hard to believe that's just a few weeks away, coming up well, geez, I guess it's like 3 weeks away in Saskatoon. The biggest curling event every 4 years, the Canadian Olympic Curling Trials. Of course, we'll be all over it. We'll do our weekly curling reports for Princess Auto, and we'll really focus in on our Manitoba teams and the quest for Olympic gold. But at Princess Auto, you find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. They're all about making sure you have what you need to keep the work going and make the ideas in your head come to life. Shop all the great deals in store at 2 Winnipeg locations, or you can do it 24 hours a day at princessauto.com. I can't wait. Remo and I are heading over to Little Brown Jug after the show today. Gonna pop by and see our friends at LPGA. I think I'm gonna try the new fall beer, the Double. I'll be taking a look at the 1919. The tap room's incredible. I'll have to fire out a picture on my Twitter later on if you haven't seen it. Over on William Avenue, it's an amazing spot. They are booking events into the holidays. If you're looking for a spot for, an office Christmas party, something that you're doing with a large group of friends, a bachelorette or a bachelor party, go to littlebrownjug.ca, go to the events page and click on that live link. You can find more about booking an event at Little Brown Jug. And of course, the great taste of LBJ available at fine bars and restaurants throughout the city. And of course, you can get 1919 and all the great Little Brown Jug beers at fine bottle shops and beer stores around the city of Winnipeg. I'll tell you what, BP is going to be a great spot to be tonight. Huge sports evening. We've got a hell of a Thursday nighter. We'll get to that in a little bit. Packers decimated at wide receiver, but on a heater after losing that first game. They're taking on the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. That's the Thursday nighter. And I have a feeling BP getting together with some of the gang, some ice cold schooners, some great pizza, some Boston's wings, and then transitioning into the Jets and Kings. It's always a great night to be at BP, but especially when the Jets are playing. Big screens, big sound. It's all your local Boston Pizza, and you can order online if you're staying home at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's get Remis back in here. Dustin Nielson's going to join us in 10 minutes or so. Lots to get to with Dusty. I want to talk to him about the Bombers. We'll get to a little bit hockey talk, as well as on the beach story, what people are saying in Edmonton, as well as what Duncan Keith did and didn't say yesterday in his media availability. But Remo, let's talk Jets. We've talked a lot about the Kyle Beach story, and we will continue to. But tonight, big opportunity for Eric Comrie. I'm giving him a chance, unlike many. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do tonight. But I will say, I think there is a lot of pressure on Comrie to perform in his first few starts for the Winnipeg Jets, considering how good Laurent Brossoit has been the last couple years, as well as the how important it is for the Winnipeg Jets to have a reliable number 2 behind the guy that's going to be in the net most nights. And of course, that's the Vezina Trophy winner, Connor Hellebuck.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned when Laurent Brossoit was signed by the Jets. I remember thinking, who is this guy? He was in Edmonton. He was not very good. And then he came to the Jets and, wow, this guy's awesome. That might have
been me. I may have uttered that a couple times.
Like, I've never even heard of this guy. And then he comes to the Jets, and now I was saying the last couple of years, he needs to play more games. He's good. Hellebuck, he's playing too much. Put in Brossoit more. And, great for Brossoit. He played, he got a nice contract with Vegas. I believe he won last night. I did have Hood open on DraftKings, but that's beside the point. A lot of people in the chat all summer. So a lot of the people in the chat, I think they're taking a lot of L's. Dubois, he sucks. He's finished. Kopp, can't score. Comrie, not a backup. I would say the first two, the majority's been proven wrong. Dubois, I think he's clear. He's one of the top players on the team. Andrew Kopp can finish and has a shot. And we'll see about Eric Comrie. I know his numbers in the past, not great. I think we can all agree. And look, if it's not working out, backup goalie, pretty easy position to fill. But I think we're all cheering for the guy. We all want him to do well. And I forgot that he grew up in the LA area, and pretty cool that he's making a start at the Staples Center. And let's see what he can do. And this is a good team if you're going to start. I mean, they're missing Doughty, Sean Walker. I know Mikey Anderson. I'm pulling for him. I got his rookie card. I got his Young Guns. He's playing an elevated role. Oli Mata. I forgot about this LA team. Oli Mata, Alex Edler. I really liked the Victor Arvidsson trade. I think he's fit in well there, but I haven't seen too much of LA, and I have liked them in the past. So we'll see how they go here tonight against the Jets.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Kings come into the game dead last in the Pacific Division.
Yeah.
1 win, 4 losses, a 1 loss in overtime with only 3 points on the season. So they'll be a team that will have a real sense of urgency to try to take advantage of the fact that they're not playing against Connor Hellebuck, and see what they can do. But again, big opportunity for Eric Comrie. And I just hope that the team plays in front of him, well, better than they did in front of Connor Hellebuck against Anaheim, but certainly gives him a little more than he had a couple seasons ago in his final couple starts with the Winnipeg Jets. You know what? Before we get Dusty on, let's do our Coolbet Lines, because there's a lot of action tonight in the National Hockey League, and of course a big football game as well. We'll be getting into the lock shop tomorrow about an hour before Winnipeg Sports Talk. So if you're normally jumping on with us at YouTube at 1 o'clock, jump on Twitter at noon. Both my account, we'll usually run the stream out of Dusty's at Nielson TSN 1260, but we'll do that at noon. It'll take us right in. We've been hot lately. And we'll see what happens for this game tonight. We had to talk about this game on Tuesday. Line for tonight, as of right now, is Packers 6.5 point underdogs in Arizona. The big part of that was it opened at 4.5. The reason for the move was that their all-pro receiver, Davante Adams, had tested positive for COVID. He was vaccinated, so there was the potential that he'd play, but you do need the 2 negative tests within 24 hours. I don't think that's happened, so we don't expect Davante Adams. And then, of course, Alan Lazard, who had just come back to the lineup and got a touchdown last week, their number 2 receiver, well, he's unvaccinated. He's exposed. He's out tonight. So Aaron Rodgers will be out, at least his top 2 receivers, maybe his top 3 if Marquez Valdez-Scantling can't come back in. But Aaron Rodgers has won a lot of games without Davante Adams before. We'll be interested to see if they can hang, though, with the undefeated Cardinals, who, as I mentioned, are 6.5 point favorites. And all you cheeseheads out there that thinks that Aaron's going to get it done, big money on the money line. If you think Green Bay can win, plus 238, meaning a $100 bet would return 338 on it. Let's get to the National Hockey League. Jets and Kings tonight. We'll start off with that game. Jets a very slight favorite over the Kings. Minus 103 for the Jets, minus 115 for the Los Angeles Kings. If you and it's interesting, the Kings number, I guess the Jets are a slight underdog. I'm reading that wrong. Kings at minus 115, Jets just basically at even money at minus 103. You can get adjusted lines as well if you'd like. Other games tonight, we'll start with the late ones. Habs and Sharks. Sharks a minus 128 favorite. Habs looking for win number 2 after they gave the Kraken their first home win a couple nights ago. The Flyers playing the second of back-to-backs. We'll talk about their game last night. They gave the Oilers their first loss of the season. They're moving on to Vancouver. Vancouver a minus 135 favorite. Flyers plus 115. The Wild, a slight favorite, taking on the Kraken in Seattle. Kraken basically even money at minus 101. Minnesota slight favorite at minus 115. And then we've got the mighty Buffalo Sabres going on to the West Coast. They're taking on the Ducks. We'll see how Anaheim rebounds after a pretty crushing way to lose a hockey game against Winnipeg on Tuesday night. Anaheim minus 135. Buffalo plus 115. Other games in the league tonight, Colorado and St. Louis. Colorado minus 132 favorites against the Blues. Tampa, a massive favorite against the Arizona Coyotes, minus 370. Straight up pick 'em between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Calgary Flames. And the Boston Bruins plus 118 underdogs on the road to take on the Carolina Hurricanes. Of course, you can bet at Coolbet, coolbet.com. And if you've never bet there before, use the promo code WST when you make your first deposit, and you will get a 100% bonus up to $200 on deposit number 1. And don't forget, Lock Shop tomorrow. Been on fire lately. We can't force you to make the picks. We can just give you the winners, and hopefully we'll have some more for you on tomorrow's show. Big slate of games tonight in the league, Reem.
Yeah, and I did make a DraftKings contest for Winnipeg Sport, people who like to play. I think it's full, actually, which is funny because it's funny, Huss, because I've been doing 30 people. And we couldn't fill those. So the last one didn't run, and people got mad. Well, why didn't it run? I made a lineup. Well, I said, no, we didn't fill. I made 20 people this morning, and And there's my account.
When you do 20, people get invites, right?
I guess they're notified. Like I invited everyone for 30, didn't fill, and I was busy in the afternoon, so I didn't invite people. But I had a pretty good night last night, Huss. I entered a $1 contest and won a $19. I won it and won a $19 qualifier ticket to the Fantasy Hockey World Championships. So I'm gonna be in. I'm gonna go in, yeah. So if I finish like first out of like 1,000 people in that, I win a trip to the live final. But I don't think that's
when is the
happen.
Contest?
I'm November like 16 or something.
Okay. I got to start going in. I got to start going in these now. So it's a $1 event, and how many people are in it?
That one was like 23 or something. And I won. I had a good lineup yesterday.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah, one person. You put it together. Who did you have yesterday?
I had the Oilers. So this is my rule for DraftKings this year. If anyone likes to do fantasy, is Connor McDavid playing on the slate? If the answer is yes, play him. Play anyone who's on the ice with him. Play anyone who's on the power play with him. Because, we can talk Dusty. The power play has been ridiculous. Watching him is out of control. And so I was just like, if he's playing, I will be playing Connor McDavid and his line mates and possibly the power play defenseman. So
yeah, well, our next guest is going to be putting his kids through school on the back of cool bets on Connor McDavid so far this season. And by the way, shout out to Greg at Royal Sports. How about the Stanley Cup banner lifting in Seattle? Pretty classic. I wonder what banner they're going to lift at Game 3. So they retired number 32 in game number 1, and then they raised a Seattle Metropolitan Stanley Cup banner from 1917. That's pretty cool. I'm here for that. It's a nice bit of hockey history that a lot of people probably don't know. But yes, I'm not sure. I don't think they'll quite get into Predators territory with the banners. But you never know. Anyways, we're going to talk to Dustin Nielson coming up in just a second. A big shout out to our friends at Not Autocorp. If you are looking for a vehicle, why not get into the car of your dreams at an incredible price with the help of the Not team? You really do need to head down to Waverly McGillivray to see all the incredible vehicles. They've been the leader when it comes to Tesla sales in Winnipeg for a number of years. When it comes to luxury vehicles, SUVs, and so much more, they've got it. Not to mention, if there's a specific vehicle that you're hoping to get into, they can help you find it if they don't have it there. They are the experts. So head on down Waverly and McGillivray, Art Not online. And if you do have maybe a modification or detail it needs to do, they do it all, including the new Winnipeg Car Lab, which does tinting, rims, as well as full vehicle wraps. Find out more, Winnipeg Car Lab on all the social media feeds, or just simply head on over to not.ca. Tomorrow, Friday, you know what that means. We'll head in. No Bomber game day this week, but we don't care. We're still going to do a Bomber Canadian Club giveaway with a big marble race at the end of the program. So make sure you're with us towards the end of tomorrow's YouTube broadcast. We've got the new Winnipeg Sports Talk Canadian Club branded hoodies we'll be giving away. Might even reach into the tickle trunk for another I Love Rye package. And by the way, congratulations to Ryan, who won it, came by the other day, picked it up, was very pleased with all the goodies, as well as the great taste of Canadian Club, which he said he's sharing with his friends at the next Bomber tailgate. Of course, Canadian Club available at IG Field for all Blue Bomber games. And you can pick it up at your local Manitoba Liquor Mart as well. And as we head into the weekend tomorrow, still a couple nice days, much warmer than I thought we'd be right now, which means let's hold on to spring and fall a little bit more with a delicious blizzard at any of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs. DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. They've been with us from day one. Phenomenal sponsors and even better people. And they'll also help you take care of maybe some party favors. If you're having an event, maybe a kid's birthday, or you just want to step up your game on game night, get a DQ ice cream cake, hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba, customize it for you, and it'll be ready for you to pick up at any of the 4 local Nick and Nicky DQs. Again, on Insta, that's at DQ Manitoba. All right, let's welcome in Dustin Nielson, the king of the AM nasty. Rumors abound, if you read the Athletic, that radio is dead. I can assure you it might be on life support. but it is not, in fact, entirely dead. And how do I know that? Well, I heard somebody win an autographed copy of Castaway after answering some questions correctly earlier. The ratings promos just keep getting better, folks, and nobody does it better than the Nielsen Show, along with our good friend, Lieutenant Erica. What's up? How are you?
Let's be honest, man. It's close to being dead. Right? Like, we're just hanging on. Like, we're planning the show as well. Like, yeah, it was, I saw Remis. I was just like, man, how about that? At the day I'm coming on their show, he's saying radio's dead. Like, unbelievable. Do you not realize that for prizing right now on our station, we're giving away my previously viewed DVDs and opportunities to shake our hands and $100 of my own money? Yes, we are. Every day, you know, like when you have one of those needles that you can jam into your heart to keep you going? That's us every morning on AM radio in Edmonton. It's just like, boom, oh, okay, let's go 4 more hours. So it's, yeah, we're grinding, man. Let's see how it goes.
I will say this, for many of our listeners that don't have a sports station here in Winnipeg to listen to, you have coined them the Hustlerites. There is a big crew of people that have come by, and if you haven't, you know, just click on the app, head on over to Edmonton 1260, because I will say this, and not just because you're a friend and we do the show together, it's just phenomenal entertainment. It is as fun as any show is. And I will say this, take it from me, you guys will be fine no matter what happens to this industry, because the entertainment that you put up, people are going to want to see, not to mention your growing profile as one of the new voices of Canadian football on TSN.
Look, man, I just want a Dairy Queen deal. You bring me in and I'm looking at these blizzards, and I think it's like Miracle Treat Day or something, because they dropped off. Hey, you think AM radio's dead? We got blizzards dropped off for us this morning. All right, no big deal. Except they were the Oreo blizzard, which is by far my least favorite, to be honest with you. Cookie dough is the way to go.
Really, you know what? You just reminded me of this, and it is not just Miracle Treat Day in Winnipeg. It's also Miracle Treat Day here in Winnipeg. I was remiss. I was mixing up the days today. Folks, if you can, you never need a good excuse to get a blizzard, but all locations of Dairy Queen, not just the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs, blizzards today, supporting the kids. All proceeds of blizzards today go to the Children's Miracle Network. So let's do that. We're going to hit Little Brown Jug afterwards, and maybe before the football game tonight, get a blizzard that will either be consumed beforehand, or maybe when I come back and I go, oh yeah, I got a blizzard in the freezer. Yes. Anyways, Miracle Treat Day, all the DQs today. I'm glad you reminded me about that, Dusty, because great sponsors of ours, but I love those dates where, you know, Tim Hortons does the Camp Day, McDonald's does McHappy Day, DQ does McMiracle Treat Day, and every day right now for you guys is Crack Pack Day. Now, Tim Hortons isn't a sponsor of ours. They probably should be. The excitement of you guys opening packs of hockey cards on the air today was amazing, and it inspired Michael Remis. Remis has some ready to go for the end of the show as well.
What? Oh, I'm so jealous right now. You should have told. I would have brought some more home. I did 20 packs on the show yesterday, 10 packs today. You should have seen our inbox yesterday on the show. People are texting in. They're like, Dusty, I just went by my regular Tim Hortons. They said the manager isn't in yet. They can't release the cards. I'm losing my mind. I was like, don't worry. I had one guy text in and say, all of you adults are spending too much on these, and now my kid can't get any. They said they're sold out. I said, they're not sold out. They just released them this morning. So it's been a while. One guy texted in and said, I just watched a guy ahead of me in line spend $630 on hockey cards at Tim Hortons. And I was just like, my God. And you know, the weird thing is they don't sponsor my show either. And they should, because I guarantee there is no city in this country that will sell more hockey cards than Edmonton, man. We love it.
Yeah, and all before 10 a.m. because they're being struck in by you and Lieutenant Eric. And I'll say this much just on the hockey card topic. Last year, so I was off the air at the time. I got out of hospital, was sitting around with nothing to do. You were always talking about these cards. I had nothing to do. I was going to go get some. Well, that was when we went into Code Red, and you couldn't go into the restaurants. The only reason I have the Tim Hortons app was because I couldn't go in to pick it up, even though they were open, because it wasn't an essential good. So I had to download the app, stand outside, put in my order on the app, and then going, "Hi, I'm here to pick up my crack packs." And so anyways,
I love it, man. We got a logo. We got everything. It's fun. It's fun.
Patrolman Pete, nobody loves hockey cards and 50-50s like Edmonton. Ain't that the truth,
That's
Pete?
true.
Hey, just quickly on that, give us some tips. What if we're getting these cards this year, what are we looking for? I mean, last year there was like some special signed cards. There's some pretty cool ones that were very rare. And then they had the triple where you had like the 3 guys from each team. Those are a little bit more rare. What are we looking for when we're cracking these packs?
Yeah, basically the equivalent this year of the triple threat or whatever it was last year is called Hockey Heroes. Same style of card. It's got that weird sort of shine to it. Pulled one this morning, actually. I got a Nathan McKinnon. They're pretty rare though. Like I said, I've opened up 30 packs and I've only got one so far. But then like last year, I mean, I don't know how many packs I would have opened last year, but there's redemption cards that you can get in there, and then you'll send it away and you'll get another card that gets sent in. So last year, those trio cards, I mean, they were going for like 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks a pop, depending on the team. So there is a little bit of value in some of these cards. And if you can put together that whole trio set, I think I'm still missing like 2 from last year. I'll have to get it completed, but that'll hold some value for sure.
No doubt about it. Now, Arthur Bignell, who's a fan of the program and a good friend of ours here, he actually pulled one of those signed the Scheifele redemption.
No way.
He was
a lucky boy.
All fired on about that. Hey, listen, we're having some laughs, but I have to talk about the big story today. I know you guys touched on it as well. Yeah. I mean, the ramifications of, this entire Blackhawks story has been felt throughout the hockey world, from National Hockey League, I think right down to grassroots. And here in Winnipeg, obviously, Kevin Cheveldayoff was part of the organization right now. He and Joel Quenneville still have to meet. But the tentacles of this are all throughout the league. And yesterday, Duncan Keith met the media. And I mean, a lot of talk about what he said, what he didn't say, how truthful he was been. How big of a story is this around Edmonton right now?
Yeah, I mean, when you've got one of the guys who played on that team in your market, it's obviously going to be a story, and we talked about it today. Duncan Keith, he sat there yesterday and took questions for 15 minutes from the media. I thought he handled himself very well. He said as of yesterday morning that he still didn't know who the player was. So from what he said, I'm assuming when Kyle Beach sat down with Rick Westhead yesterday, that was the first Duncan Keith heard of it. That's at least kind of what he led us to believe. I talked about it with Cassie and Engager on my podcast today, 2 guys and a goalie. And I said, is it possible that something's going on in an organization and some guys in the room know about it and some guys don't? Like, are there things in the room that some guys know and some guys don't? And both of those guys said, yeah, you know what? It is possible that there's some things going on that some guys wouldn't know about. I think what I've realized out of this is that you pretty much can't trust anybody. I mean, that's essentially what's going on. When you've got people in position of power, I think I just saw before I came on, I was looking on Twitter and somebody said John Tortorella made a point where he said that if this was your 20-year-old kid, and somebody came to you and said, my 20-year-old kid is being abused, how would you have handled it? Right? If somebody came to me and said, if that was my kid, then I would have handled it immediately. But somebody comes to you, or the kid himself comes to you and says, hey, this is going on, and you tell everybody else that, don't worry about it. We got this. We're going to handle it. And then you don't. Very troubling, man. Stan Bowman, obviously, he already got axed. We'll see what happens as the trickle-down effect continues, especially in Florida. But, there's a lot of talk today about the Kane and Keith and Taves and Quenneville and, Chevy. And there's a lot of that discussion. But we have to remember here, the story is Kyle Beach. Kyle Beach is the story, and you don't want this happening again. And I'm sure we're naive to think it won't happen again somewhere, but you hope that in this day and age, you sit there and watch him for 25 minutes in tears from start to finish. And you hope that first of all, if there are other victims out there, and we know if there are other victims out there and you've been through this, maybe you now feel, comfortable enough to come out and talk about it. Or if then you feel like you're in a weird spot, but you think something like this might be happening somewhere else, maybe you too now feel confident to step up, or hell, reach out to Rick Westhead and explain to him. And he does an excellent job on these types of stories. So it's frustrating. I mean, as a fan of hockey, as a parent of young kids who are just getting into the sport, I just think,
you know what? I'm glad you brought that up.
Really
because
disturbs me.
I mean, you know what? As a close friend, I mean, I'm always loving the pictures. I mean, knowing your little guy Marshall, who's finally getting a chance to get on the ice after last year basically being canceled. You know, not having kids, but you know, having a number of people close to me that have young kids that are getting involved in the sport. You know, as a parent, you're like, this must be chilling to hear. And I mean, I've been saying this all along. If this can happen to a 20-year-old man on a National Hockey League team in the middle of the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's chilling to think what might be possible at other levels below with the power that many of these adults have over the futures and dreams of young kids. And I mean, as horrible as this story has been, the courage of Kyle Beach, the work of Rick Westhead, I mean, the one thing that I hope is that, you know, there is a full recalibration of how this sport, these teams, people that have grown up in a very different culture, that this needs to change because, you know, everything else, whoever, like their cup right now, we'll think, yeah, they won the championship. What do people think of when they think of the 2010 Chicago Blackhawks? It's not Pat Kane's mystery goal that went in to win the cup. It's Kyle Beach, who never even played in the playoffs last year, but was the victim that year. Was the victim, and I mean, it really is chilling.
You know, the kids thing was interesting because, as you know, Huss, I don't have a lot of free time. So my boy was on the ice power skating, and I sat down in the stands and I'm watching him, and I saw them release the Beach video essentially at the time. So I clicked on it and I started watching it, and I watched about the first 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm watching my boy and 20 other 5, 6, 7-year-olds out there playing, and I shut it off. I was like, I can't watch that right now because you've got like and we all hope this. We all hope that, you know, our kids are in an environment where they can grow up and feel safe, right? The last thing I would want is for my kid or any other kid to have to go to a junior hockey team and there's some pervert that works there that's going to try to take advantage of them because they know they're a kid and he's in a position of power. And for the most part, I mean, everybody I've met so far in the last couple of years around hockey, it all seems great. I'm sure 95, 96, 97% of people in the game have great intentions. But just like every other aspect of life, there's going to be some bad apples along the way. And what you need to do is identify who those people are. Don't protect them in any way, shape, or form. Like if you're Quenneville, and I'll be very interested to see how Gary Bettman handles this, because according to the story, he was in the meeting, so he knew about it. And then he still wrote a recommendation to this guy, so that, and knowing what he had done.
Finishing up with congratulations on winning the Stanley Cup.
How in the world can you write a recommendation for this guy to go and work somewhere else? You can't. And then to still lie about it up until early in this week. Like, that's why I think he's probably in the hottest of waters right now as far as the trickle-down effect goes. So I want the sport to be a place where everybody can feel safe. And at the junior level, we've seen that it hasn't been the case. At the National Hockey League level, like you said, the highest of levels, this happens to and you know what? He was a young man. But these guys are all still kids. I mean, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. I know 40-year-old me has a huge different view on things than a 22-year-old Dustin is, and the way that a 22-year-old Dustin would have acted in certain situations. So, I mean, those guys need guidance just as much as anyone else.
You know, very, very well said. And I mean, I didn't want to ignore that. I mean, it's something that we have to talk about, and you've got a really interesting perspective. And being in Edmonton, that was a huge story yesterday. There was also a hockey game last night. And again, a lot of these games are somewhat secondary right now to the story. I kind of watched the games last night, but as I said to people at the beginning of the show, I was sort of in a trance for about 3 hours after watching that. I mean, I was online, I was reading more stories. I was very quiet. I mean, I was shaken by it. And again, I'm not a parent. I'm not involved in the sport other than BSing about it with guys like you on this program. But this is incredibly serious. And I'll tell you what, dude, just one more thing on this.
Yeah.
I mean, the Quenneville, Shovel Day Off, the players, they're going to be answering. But the other thing that came out of yesterday that I think that caught me the most off guard was the fact that he went to the National Hockey League Players Association. Yep. And Donald Fehr, I'm not sure whether this was timed perfectly for them or what, he put out a statement at midnight last night. saying that, they apologize for the way that it's gone. I really wonder, this just seems like it's such a seismic event that you wonder if this has ripple effects in the NHLPA. And to be honest, the more I think about it, I do wonder how much people in the NHL office knew. There's a lot of talk about the way the NFL's handled the Washington football team situation and the emails that came out that sunk John Gruden and the other ones that are seemingly not being released, apparently to protect the people within the organization, which is BS. We've heard so many of those people speak out saying, no, we want this out there right now. But I really wonder about Gary Bettman, Bill Daly, what they knew and what was done, if anything, throughout. I'm not accusing anything, but I think these are also questions that need to be asked. I mean, as bad as this was with the Blackhawks, this is 11 years ago. So many people knew about this. I have a hard time believing, particularly when we know that he literally went to the PA, that wouldn't get back to the other side. And I think there's a lot of people that sort of need to answer for their role, their actions, or lack thereof over the course of the last decade.
Anytime anything like this or any other, and we've seen a lot of different storylines and guys getting into trouble in the National Football League. And every time something pops up, even the Washington story right now, people are calling for Roger Goodell's head. Like, it always falls on the commissioner in the National Football League. And so far, I mean, as far as, the mainstream media goes, Gary Bettman really hasn't come up that much just yet, outside of allowing Quenneville to be on the bench last night when he easily could have put in a phone call and said, hey man, like, you're going to meet with me on Saturday. Let's just keep you out of the spotlight for now. So epic fail on the National Hockey League's front in that aspect of it. The player, I mean, what's the role of the Players Association? To look after your players. If you hear that one of your members is being assaulted by his video coach, then you run that thing up the ladder and you get it taken care of, because you can't just think, oh, the team will take care of it. It's a team issue. Your job as a union is to protect your members. That's how every union has worked in the history of unions, and they failed to do it there. And I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I would think if Donald Fear knew of this, and does he keep it hidden from Gary Bettman? Who knows? Maybe not. But whenever there's a black eye like this on a National Hockey League, as the guy who runs the league, you need to take some responsibility for it. Simple enough. It's the culture of your league. You need to own it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Dustin Nielson's with us. I did. Owen Catelli said, you need to name drop Dustin Nielson, because if I was listening on Spotify or Apple, I'd think you were talking to Seth Rogen. I'm not sure. Maybe you've got a voice.
I don't mind that. I like Seth Rogen. I look like Seth Rogen. It's okay.
Great start for the Oilers. Finally lost one last night. It wasn't a great night for Koskinen, and I guess Mike Smith's out for it. But like as Remis said beforehand, don't really worry about the goaltending, the defense. As long as 97 is out there doing what he's doing, the team's in pretty good. Pretty awesome start. And I imagine quite exciting for the fans. It's been quite upbeat on the Nielsen show as of late. A far cry to the aftermath of the 4-game sweep by the Winnipeg Jets earlier.
That's why I'm here. I see how this works. Radio is dead and the Jets swept the Oilers. Well, talk to you later. Look, I heard Remis say, you just keep betting on McDavid. You get McDavid out there. Well, I missed on a McDavid bet last night, if you can believe it. I had him at over 2.5 points at plus 260. And he came this close. He got stopped point blank a couple of times. He finished with 2 points. He's got 6 multi-point games to start the season. You know what's the crazy thing is, Huss, and Koskinen, I mean, last night's game, Koskinen was brutal. Carter Hart made some big saves on some of the big Oilers, and the Flyers ended up winning that game. I don't think they're a bad hockey team. I thought the Oilers might lose that game. I said it on one of my podcasts.
I did.
Over the weekend.
That was when Gazzola said they were going to win the first 11 or 12 games of the season.
And I said, I think they might lose.
Conservative estimate. I'm thinking mid-November for their first loss.
Yeah, exactly. But the weird thing is with McDavid, and as cool bet reps like ourselves, McDavid over 1.5 points was like minus 167 last night. Minus 167 for 2 points. That's why I bet him for 3, because it got me up to plus 260. I was like, how ridiculous is this guy that it's minus 167 for 2 points, not one, but two. You watch him play, man. The power play last night was 1 for 4, and we're acting like it went 0 for 9 in this city. You're like, what's wrong with the power play? And they had full control last night on the power play. Carter Hart just made some saves. Their power play is all-time good. Like, it's ridiculous. And they've got some depth this year. So Koskinen's usually good for 1 or 2. This was his 3rd start in a row. Probably should have seen it coming. He was atrocious last night. And we'll see what happens. They play Saturday against Vancouver. Then they get Monday, Wednesday, Friday next week. So hopefully Mike Smith's ready to take a couple of those games.
Dustin Nielson's with us, not only a great friend of ours, my partner on the Lock Shop, but one of the voices of the Canadian Football League. You've been killing it all year long. You've been doing a lot of Bomber games, which has
Lots
been
of
fun.
Bomber games.
I mean, just bringing the CFL and the betting together, I still am laughing over the fact that the Bombers were able to shut out an opponent and hit the over themselves last week. I mean, you were in the booth calling it on TSN. They don't seem to be like, they seem to be getting better and better every game, if that's possible. And the gap right now, Dusty, from the top of the CFL to number 2 in the rest seems to almost be growing by the week.
Yeah, it is. I mean, with the way they're playing and the teams that they're knocking off, and really not, I mean, for some weird reason, the Elks have been able to challenge them a little bit twice, but for the most part, they are dominating teams. And like, it's weird because when you have one team that's so darn good in a league, sometimes that's not great for the league. But I think this one is different. I think this is an exception to the rule because you've got a pretty good chunk of teams, like 5 or 6 teams below them in the standings that are good enough, I think, to beat them, maybe 2 or 3 out of 10 times. Like, I think that it could happen. I don't know how it happens. To be honest with you, I think the only way, or whoever, if somebody does knock off the Bombers at some point, you're going to have to find a way to hit Zach Collaros. And they have managed to keep him upright for the most part this season. His offensive line has done a phenomenal job. And when you give him time with the weapons that he has and whoever's at running back in the defense, they're just going to find a way to get it done. So I do think that there's this sort of fun, who's going to emerge from this pack to be the team that tries to take down the big bad Bombers and stop an all-time great defensive season. And so I like the fact that there's this powerhouse in the league this year and everybody else is gunning for him. I think that's great.
It really is. It's been a lot of fun. They've got the bye week this week, a couple games against Montreal. And I guess the biggest question around here is, how Mike O'Shea handles the lineup. Does he play these guys, right through to the end? Still a lot of football to be left and a long time until that December 5th game. So that'll be something we're following. You in the booth this weekend on TSN?
Yeah, I'm just in town here this weekend. I got the Ticats and Elks on Friday. And then next week, I got the Elks here Friday night, and then I'm off to Winnipeg again to do that game next Saturday. So looking forward to being back in Winnipeg.
That's right. Well, I'll look forward to see you here. And of course, tomorrow, we've got a big show to do. Usually, I'll start really focusing in on the picks for Friday's show, on Thursday while we're doing the Thursday Nighter. Ever since we finished the Tuesday show with the Thursday Nighter, I've been obsessed with these lines. What was the number for our Circa picks in the last 4 weeks?
16, 3, and 1.
Like,
right? Come on.
We got to keep this going.
Have we made it 4-1 or 5-0 this week, buddy? Like, we're in the thick of it.
What have we made a decision on whether Coolbet Chris is back in on the partner parlay after we said if we went 5-0, he's out and went 5-0?
I think what we do is we bring him in, and he's flying back from Estonia today, I believe. But we bring him in, we let him contribute, and then at the end we say, thanks for the support, Chris, but here's our 5 picks.
Yeah.
I think we just lay it out. Like, it's already done. Thanks for your input, but we're going with our 5 picks.
Tomorrow, folks, at noon our time, 11 in Edmonton on Dustin. And by the way, if you're not following Dusty already, you certainly should be. He's got tons of other great content, fantasy football, 2 guys in a goalie pod. It's all there at Nielsen TSN 1260. We'll go live tomorrow around noon, leading into Winnipeg Sports Talk, and we'll be all over NFL Week 8 picks and hopefully keep this heater going. Dude, always love chatting with you. Have a good one. Say hi to LTE. He's the man.
I will for sure. We'll be on radio again. Actually, I'm off tomorrow, so he'll be on. Poor sucker. Talk to you later, man.
Right on. There he is, Dustin Nielson. And of course, he'll be on TV tomorrow calling the Elks and Ticats on TSN. Then he'll be back here in Winnipeg calling the Blue Bombers and Alouettes on Saturday. for the program. All right, couple things to get to before 3 o'clock. Don't forget, right after, if you're with us live on YouTube, as soon as we're finished, head on over, check out Kenny and Rennie. Very interested to hear what Frank Saravelli's got to say about this entire situation. And Jim Houston as well. A couple great guests for the guys for the weekly show coming up. Remo, lots of things to get to before we finish up. And a number of the things that we've talked about. Just wrapping some of the latest news on the Kyle Beach story. We mentioned Joel Quenneville coaching last night for the Florida Panthers. Did not address the media after the game. Bill Zito did, the general manager, and was asked whether Joel Quenneville would continue as coach and didn't answer and walked away. Thanked everyone for being there. So I think still a lot up in the air when it comes to Quenneville's situation. Of course, we'll find out more about Kevin Cheveldayoff's future with the Winnipeg Jets after the meeting with Commissioner Gary Bettman on Monday. Don Fair admitted late last night in a tweet that came out at about midnight that the union failed Kyle Beach. I'm sure there's much more to hear from that. And as we speak right now, Reem, Joel Quenneville, I'm not sure how long the meeting is, but it started at 2 o'clock Eastern, finishing up. And I'd imagine we'll find out something about Joel Quenneville's future in the very shortly, I would think, after he met with the commissioner today in these first of the meetings that were planned coming out of the investigation.
Yeah, and I got to be honest, like that was pretty, part of your duty as a head coach is answer questions from media after the game. If you're not prepared to answer questions, maybe you should sit out that game and wait for things to play out. It was hard to see him think that he could be behind a bench after watching the interview. The timing couldn't have been more. Just the optics were pretty rough. So we'll wait and see what happens. Andrew Ladd, thanks for people in chat. Andrew Ladd has a statement out. He was on the 2010 Blackhawks team, Huss, and this is via Craig Morgan, who does a great job covering the Coyotes. Yes, Andrew Ladd's still in the league playing on the Coyotes. And he said, there are no words that can do justice to the pain and suffering Kyle has gone through over the past 11 years. My hope is that the courage he has shown through this process will help other victims going forward, and it shines a light on the shortcomings we have in the hockey community that we must improve upon. An opportunity for everyone within the game to learn, grow, do everything within our power to ensure we create a safe and supportive environment for all involved, and I look forward to being part of that process. And then he adds, with regard to the incident, I cooperated with the investigation. I had no knowledge about what happened to Kyle during my time with the Blackhawks. I realize it's within reason to think all players may have known, but I can assure you I was never informed or overheard any discussions about the incident during the playoffs that year. And that's Andrew Ladd putting a statement through Craig Morgan, Coyotes reporter with Phoenix Sports.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned this before. Brent Sopo's been quite outspoken. The timeline of when everyone knew, I think, is still somewhat up in the air. Certainly, some people say shortly afterwards, everybody knew. That's what Brent Sopel said. But Sopel, Ladd, and Buff were all traded shortly after winning the Stanley Cup, all the big celebrations, which included Bradley Aldridge, and then they were members of the Thrashers, and then became inaugural members of the Winnipeg Jets 2.0. Great news, though, for a little bit of Manitoba hockey. I mean, there's been a lot of bad news and a lot of really tough news lately. How about Zach Whitecloud? MJHL product gets a 6-year extension with the Golden Knights. And I'll tell you what, I think this is going to turn into a hell of a value deal for the Golden Knights. But Zach Whitecloud, $2.75 million for the next 6 seasons. He's signed through 27-28. And I remember when, he was, coming, he signed out of, I don't believe he was drafted. He signed out of college. And just a great, great story for a young man that, worked his ass off and, made it to the National Hockey League. And now he's going to be part of VGK for the next 6 years, another part of the growing Manitoba contingent down in Sin City. Yeah,
AAV 2.75 million seems, I agree, value deal. And if you think he can contribute and maybe be like a, bottom to middle pair D for you, this could be valuable, but great for Zach Whitecloud, financial security, as you said. I mean, was he undrafted? I remember we saw his name on Team Canada at the Olympics in Pyeongchang, and we really weren't familiar with him then, but saw he was from Manitoba and was an interesting story. And as you said, just another one of those Manitobans as part of the Golden Knights organization. It's wild how many how many are over there. Not just on the ice too, in the front office and in the media.
Well, exactly. I mean, Kelly McCrimmon, of course, and you got, our
Gary,
knucklehead buddies, Lawless and Nighty, and Darren Millard's with the club as well. But just the MJHL putting out a piece, just how proud they are. The veteran of the Verdun Oil Capitals, who then went to, I believe, Bemidji State, and now 6 years with the Vegas Golden Knights. Heck of a great story. Speaking of great hockey stories here in Manitoba, how about the ice? 11 wins in a row. Took out the Calgary Hitmen last night. This team, they might never lose, Reem. 11 on the season, and now they go to Edmonton trying to make it an even dozen coming out of the gate to start the year.
Yes. Hold on, sorry. Someone tweeted at me just now. I got distracted that my math is off when I said radio is dead. I guess the guy's never heard of hyperbole and self-promotion. So what were you saying about the ice? I mean, they're pretty awesome. It's great to see. I saw they're like up there number 2 on the thing.
CHL.
Sorry, I'm having a good laugh.
Put the blinders on.
I'm having a good laugh. I got distracted by my
yeah, wouldn't be the first time.
As
long as you're not kicking over the computer, cutting out the internet feed.
Hey, it's the first in 2 days that we haven't had an outage. We didn't have any programs crash. Fingers crossed. We didn't have anyone trying to take down our internet. Everything's been working. My foot rest has been the appropriate location. Here, should I throw up this tweet? I love
Sure.
This guy. His math seems to be off. The number 1 radio station averages 30,000 listeners a day, multiplied by 30 days, by 8 months. Seems he has a ways to go before the statement is true.
Hey, Brent. Okay, we won't even get.
Yeah, I don't need to. I said my response. I said I guess he's never heard of hyperbole and self-promotion. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't need to respond. I don't respond to this. We're having fun. We're having fun here. We're having fun.
Yeah, we are. We are having a little bit of fun. It has been a series few days on the program, and we've had to talk about this, but that was an epic quote from Remis. We had some great fun, and honestly, Dustin is such a good dude. That was as fun of a conversation as we've had, because usually we're focusing on one thing. Yeah. We hit a lot of topics, and he's great. And I know Sandy was asking, can you get that on your AM dial? Well, obviously not here because of the distance the signal would have to travel. But it's real simple. I mean, you can go to tsn.ca if you want to do it on your computer. The easiest way, what I do, I just have the TSN app on the phone. There's a listen area. I think that it's been updated. The Winnipeg 1290 doesn't exist. The Vancouver 1040 doesn't exist. The Hamilton 1150 doesn't exist. But Edmonton 1260 still does exist. So, anytime in the morning, you can just hit that on. Dusty and LTE have as fun and entertaining a morning show as I've ever heard, to be honest. And certainly they're focusing more on Edmonton stuff. But there's a lot of other nonsense, frivolity that you will enjoy, I'm sure. And it certainly is all sports content. And but there were never any better shows than the aftermath of the Jets sweep. I was hoping, Remo, last night that I'd be able to tune into some Leaf Post games talking about a loss.
Same.
They pulled one out of the fire last night. Did not deserve to win that game. Sort of similar to maybe the Jets in the game against Anaheim earlier this week, but a very different situation going in. I'm not sure their problems are solved right now, but a lot of people didn't want to see the Blackhawks win the game anyways. Although I'm sort of feeling for the players that are left on the Blackhawks right now. What a terrible situation to be in, a cloud around the organization. Everyone else is gone. It's certainly not on the players right now that are wearing that Blackhawks jersey, but there's a lot of baggage that's being carried by that organization. They played their asses off last night and probably deserved a better fate, but the Leafs got a very important 2 points to get off the schneid.
Yeah, I mean, they were down, and we joked, Blackhawks haven't led all season, so of course they're going to come out and score the first goal, and they did, and they had a 2-0 lead. Credit to the Leafs. I was kind of looking forward to what the Leaf reaction was going to be. I mean, by all accounts, they're out shooting everyone. They're playing well. Puck luck just isn't going their way, but that really isn't good enough for Leaf fans who feel they're seeing the same thing over and over again, much like a couple Jets fans were saying when the Jets started out, 2-1, I believe. So yeah. So it was kind of interesting. But good for the Leafs, so we'll keep an eye. I mean, there was the national game. I was watching the end of that, and tuned into the Oilers game as well. So Yeah, it was a decent Wednesday night. Is that still like the national game night? I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, they did do. Well, I mean, the Leaf game was on. I mean, the World Series was on last night. I guess that's one thing that we didn't really talk about, the Astros. I'd like to not focus on anything good for the Houston Astros, but the series is tied at 1-1 as it heads back to Atlanta after the Braves stole home field advantage, winning game number 1 on the road. And, Darb Yor, Remis, I want your hat. I need something to cover my weed jar. Great show. Hey, Darb, thanks again for that. You know, folks, I believe we do have a few more. Everything's sold out at Royal, but we do have a couple more remaining that you can pick up in Winnipeg for that, as well as these, the hoodies, and more. It's all over at Winnipeg Sports Talk. You can see, just click on the store. And yeah, we've got the hats that are remaining. We've only got a couple. We had a very limited amount available. But the t-shirts, hoodies, baby stuff, that sort of thing, they'll get it done up one off and get it out to you right away. So it's all there, winnipegsportstalk.com, and just hit the store account. Folks, thanks so much. This has been an awesome show today. I appreciate Ken coming on, and I do want to get out right now because in 1 minute, Kenny and Rennie are going to be going live. So we'll get out. Tomorrow we'll have a big show. Murat Atesh is going to join us. We'll certainly get Murat's thoughts on everything going on around the Winnipeg Jets this week, on the ice and off the ice. Always appreciate Murat's time. May have to place a call to Hacksaw to get ready for the NFL weekend. And Hacksaw, I'm sure, will have some takes on what's been happening in the NHL as well, albeit from Southern California. And we'll also have the latest on the CFL heading into the weekend. But enjoy the game tonight. Great sports night. We've got the Packers and Cardinals to get things going, and then a late night game on the West Coast between the Winnipeg Jets and the Los Angeles Kings, with Eric Conry making his first start of the year for the Winnipeg Jets. Tomorrow we'll get it all around. And of course, don't forget, right about this exact time in 24 hours, another Canadian Club marble race to finish off the week. We've got one of the branded hoodies along with CC to give away, and I Love Rye package and more. So make sure to join us on Friday. If you haven't already, folks, hit that thumbs up before you leave. Please make sure you've already subscribed. It's very simple. It's free. Just hit that red subscribe button on YouTube and make sure to join us tomorrow. And do us a favor. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk. Always like to have more Winnipeg sports fans joining us every day here on YouTube and on the podcast on the ride home. Thanks again to all of our sponsors, including Not Auto Corp, the Nick and Nikki DQ Group. Don't forget, it's DQ Miracle Treat Day today. Treat yourself to a blizzard and help a great cause. Canadian Club, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, where we're actually heading to very shortly, Princess Auto, Royal Sports, Manitoba Battery, and the water experts in Winnipeg for 65 years, Culligan Water, and Coolbet Canada. You can get your bets in for tonight's action at coolbet.com and use the promo code WST. Kenny and Rennie coming up now. Head on over to their YouTube channel. Enjoy the program, and we'll see you in 22 hours right back here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thanks for being with us, and have a great night.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.